Abandoned on a rainy street, too weak to even cry out, a tiny puppy lay forgotten, his legs broken, his spirit nearly crushed. But in the darkest moment of his life, when hope seemed lost, a stranger's gentle touch sparked a fight within, him that would defy every odds. This is the unforgettable story of a paralyzed puppy born to fight, and the love that gave him a second chance at life. Left behind in the rain. The sky wept that morning as though it knew what was about to happen. A cold drizzle soaked the empty road where a cardboard box sat near a garbage bin, slowly collapsing under the weight of the falling rain. Inside it, shivering and silent, was a tiny puppy no more than a few weeks old. His fur, once probably soft and white, was now matted with mud. His legs, thin, weak, lifeless, lay motionless against the damp cardboard. He couldn't move, not even to curl up for warmth. His name was not yet known. No one had ever called to him with love. No one had held him close or whispered promises of safety. To the world, he was just another throwaway, an inconvenience someone had rid themselves of when they realized he couldn't walk. Cars passed by, splashing water onto the roadside, unaware or uncaring of the small soul left behind. People walked past with umbrellas, eyes glued to their phones, rushing to their destinations, never looking down. But the puppy. He lay awake, eyes half open, barely breathing. He didn't cry, not because he wasn't hurting, but because he'd already learned it wouldn't help. The cold had crept into his bones, and the hunger gnawed at his belly like a monster. Still, he clung to the fading echo of life, too young to understand why pain had been his only companion since the day he was born. At some point that morning, the wind grew stronger, slapping the box open. The puppy's small, frail body was now exposed to the world, soaked and trembling. A crow landed nearby, curiously pecking at the box. The puppy didn't flinch. He had no strength left, not to fight, not to flee. He simply blinked, as if saying, "If this is the end, let it be quick." But fate, it seemed, wasn't ready to give up on him just yet. Across the street, a young woman named Mira had just stepped out of a small bakery. She paused as her eyes caught sight of the broken box, and something inside her stirred. At first, she thought it was just trash, but then she saw it, a pair of eyes. Dull, tired, full of unshed tears, her heart clenched. She dropped her umbrella and ran across the road, kneeling beside the box, uncaring that her jeans were soaking through. "Oh my God," she whispered, reaching in with trembling hands. The puppy didn't resist. His tiny body fit in her palms like a forgotten toy, weightless and cold. "You poor thing, what happened to you?" she murmured, her voice breaking. He didn't answer. But in that moment, as he nestled against the warmth of her chest, a single sigh escaped his lips. For the first time, someone had held him gently. For the first time, he felt safe. And that, on a stormy morning, was the fragile beginning of a fight neither of them knew they would soon face together. A stranger's kind eyes. The warmth of Mira's hands was a strange, unfamiliar comfort to the little puppy, whose body had known only cold and loneliness. As she cradled him close, the storm still raged above, but inside her coat, he felt a flicker of something new. Hope. Mira's eyes, soft and full of compassion, searched his fragile form. She noticed immediately that his hind legs didn't move. They hung limp, as if his body had forgotten how to listen to his own will. Panic surged through her veins. How could someone abandon such a tiny, helpless creature, especially one who couldn't even stand on his own? She looked around, hoping to find someone, anyone, who might have seen what had happened. But the street was quiet again, the world rushing past, indifferent to the silent suffering of this little life. Mira wiped a tear that escaped down her cheek. "Don't worry, little one. I'm here now. You're not alone anymore." Cradling him tightly, she hurried home. The puppy's heartbeat was fast, his fragile chest rising and falling against her warmth. Despite the fear and pain, he somehow trusted her. It was the first time he had ever felt safe enough to surrender, even a flicker of his fragile spirit. Mira's apartment, she carefully laid him down on a soft blanket. She wrapped him like a precious treasure and called a veterinarian. The phone rang endlessly, but finally a kind voice answered. Hours later, Mira sat quietly in the sterile clinic, waiting room, her mind racing with worry. What if he would never walk again? What if this was all he'd ever know? Pain and helplessness. She had found him abandoned in the rain, a silent victim of cruelty and neglect, but she refused to give up on him. When the vet finally came out, holding the tiny puppy, Mira's heart nearly stopped. "He's young, but his spine is injured," the vet explained gently. "It's likely he's paralyzed from the waist down. It will be a difficult journey, but with care and love, some puppies do adapt." Mira nodded, tears slipping freely now. "I'll do whatever it takes. I won't let him give up." The puppy's small eyes looked up at her, filled with a fragile flicker of trust. Though he couldn't know it yet, Mira's kindness was a lifeline, a promise that he would fight, and she would fight for him too. That night, as the rain finally ceased and a sliver of moonlight peeked through the clouds, the little puppy curled into Mira's arms. Though his legs could not move, his heart began to beat with a new rhythm. The rhythm of hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between a stranger and a soul left behind. In that quiet moment, two lives intertwined, one broken, one healing. And a silent vow was made. No matter how hard the road ahead, they would face it together, learning to crawl, dreaming to run. Days passed, but the struggle had only just begun. The little puppy lay on the soft blanket in Mira's living room, his bright eyes still full of wonder, but his tiny body stubbornly refusing to obey. His hind legs twitched occasionally, but no matter how hard he tried, they wouldn't carry him. The world was a blur of smells and sounds, yet he could only watch as other dogs played and ran in the park outside Mira's window, things he longed to do but could not. Mira spent every moment by his side. She spoke softly to him, her voice a steady anchor amid the storm of his helplessness. "We'll figure this out. I know you can fight through this. You're stronger than you think." But inside the puppy's heart, a storm brewed. He felt trapped inside a body that refused to cooperate. Frustration, fear, and sorrow often overwhelmed him, and sometimes he whimpered softly, mourning the life that had been stolen from him. How cruel fate seemed to be. To give him breath, but take away the freedom to move. One afternoon, Mira noticed something. Tiny, almost imperceptible. The puppy's front paws began pushing forward, dragging his body a little bit across the blanket. It was slow and exhausting, but it was movement. Movement meant hope. Mira's eyes filled with tears. "Look at you! You're crawling," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. She clapped softly, encouraging him. "That's it. Keep going, little fighter." Each day became a new battle. The puppy practiced crawling tirelessly, learning to compensate with the strength in his front legs. Mira fashioned small cushions and ramps, creating a safe world for him to explore on his own terms. She celebrated every inch he covered, every moment he lifted his head a little higher. The puppy dreamed of running again, of feeling the wind rush past his ears, of chasing butterflies in the sun. Those dreams gave him strength when his body wanted to surrender. He imagined himself bounding joyfully alongside other dogs, tail wagging and heart soaring, and even though his legs stayed still, his spirit refused to break. One evening, Mira sat beside him, brushing his soft fur. "You were born to fight," she said softly, tears shining in her eyes. "And I promise I'll never let you give up." The puppy lifted his head, eyes shining with trust. He might have been paralyzed, but his heart was untamed. In the quiet bond between them, a promise was made. No matter how long or hard a journey, they would face it together, step by slow, determined step. Because sometimes the fiercest battles are not about speed or strength, but about never, ever losing hope. Wheels of hope. The world was no longer just a soft blanket and a cold floor. It was a place waiting to be explored, and slowly but surely, the little puppy was learning that he could be part of it, even if it wasn't the way he had imagined. Mira had spent countless hours researching and talking to specialists. One day, a kind veterinarian suggested something that sounded like a miracle, a tiny wheelchair designed just for puppies like him. It wasn't a cure, but it was a chance to move, to feel the wind, to live more fully. When the wheelchair arrived, wrapped carefully in a bright blue box, Mira's heart raced. She gently lifted the puppy and placed him inside the frame. At first, he was unsure, his legs dangling, unable to touch the ground, his balance unfamiliar. But Mira's voice was calm and loving. "You've got this, little one. I'm right here with you." Slowly, with careful guidance, the puppy's front paws pushed against the smooth floor. At first, he only moved a few inches before wobbling. Frustration flickered in his eyes, but Mira was there, steady and patient. "Take your time. You're doing amazing." Day after day, they practiced together. The puppy learned to balance, to steer, and to find the rhythm of movement. Each small victory was a celebration, a trembling tail wag, a lick on Mira's hand, a spark of pure joy shining in his eyes. But it wasn't just the physical progress that mattered. The wheelchair gave him something far more precious: independence. He could explore the world beyond the four walls that had once felt like a cage. He could chase the sunlight streaming through the windows, sniff the garden flowers, and even meet other dogs in the park. One afternoon, Mira wheeled him to a quiet field, the grass soft beneath the wheels. The puppy's ears perked up as birds sang overhead. For the first time, he felt like more than just a victim of misfortune. He was a fighter, a survivor. Tears slipped down Mira's cheeks as she watched him, so full of life and determination. "You're a miracle," she whispered, hugging him close. "You were born to fight, and you're winning." In that moment, the little puppy understood something deep inside. His body might be limited, but his spirit soared free. With every push forward, every hopeful glance, he was rewriting his story. Not as a helpless pup left behind, but as a brave soul who refused to be broken. And though the road ahead was still long and uncertain, one thing was clear. Together, they had found the wheels of hope. And with hope beneath him, there was nothing he couldn't face. The day I felt the sun again. The gentle warmth of the sun filtered through the leaves, casting dappled light across the soft grass where the little puppy sat in his wheelchair. For the first time in what felt like forever, he was outside, not confined by cold walls or thick blankets, but free to feel the breeze and the earth beneath him, even if it was through the wheels that carried him forward. Mira pushed him slowly along the garden path, her hands steady and full of love. The puppy's eyes sparkled, drinking in every sound, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, the distant laughter of children playing. It was a symphony of life he had almost forgotten existed. The sun kissed his face, and in that moment, something inside him stirred, a bright, fierce flame of joy and belonging. His tail twitched, a tiny movement, but a sign of a heart awakening. He was alive, truly alive in a way that went beyond mere survival. Mira knelt beside him, her voice soft and full of emotion. "Look at you. You're here, and you're shining." Tears welled up in her eyes as she gently stroked his head. "I know this hasn't been easy, but you've never stopped fighting." The puppy's gaze met hers, and in those deep, brown eyes was a promise that no matter the challenges, he would keep reaching for this feeling. The feeling of sunlight on his fur, the feeling of hope in his heart, the feeling of belonging in a world that once seemed so cruel. As the days grew longer and the seasons shifted, the puppy's world expanded. He learned to navigate the garden paths with increasing confidence, exploring new smells and sights. Other dogs approached curiously, and though some hesitated at first, they soon accepted him as one of their own. One afternoon, Mira watched from the porch as he wheeled himself toward a patch of wildflowers, his tiny nose twitching with delight. She felt a swell of pride and gratitude. This wasn't just a puppy who had been abandoned and broken. This was a fighter, a survivor who had reclaimed his place in the world. The day he felt the sun again was more than a milestone. It was a rebirth. It was proof that even the smallest light could pierce the darkest night, that even the most fragile heart could beat with fierce determination. And as the puppy rested his head on Mira's lap that evening, he knew deep down that this was only the beginning. The road ahead might still be hard, but with the sun on his face and love in his life, he was ready to face whatever came next. Because sometimes all it takes is one warm day to remind you that life is worth every fight. Born to fight, destined to inspire. The little puppy, once fragile and abandoned in the rain, had grown into a symbol of courage that no one could ignore. His journey from helplessness to hope had touched the hearts of everyone who met him, starting with Mira, who had never stopped believing in him. Their bond was unbreakable, forged through sleepless nights, painful setbacks, and small victories that felt like miracles. Through it all, the puppy never lost his fierce spirit, the quiet roar inside him that refused to be silenced. One crisp morning, Mira wheeled him to the local park, where a small crowd had gathered. News of the puppy's story had spread, and people came from near and far to see the little warrior who had defied the odds. Children knelt beside him, their fingers gently brushing his fur. Adults whispered stories of resilience, inspired by his unwavering will to live. Mira's heart swelled as she watched him, a tiny pup in a wheelchair, but with eyes full of fire and a tail that wagged like thunder. He was more than a survivor. Now, he was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is a spark that can never be extinguished. As she spoke to the crowd, Mira shared their story, the abandonment, the pain, the endless fight for every inch of life. She spoke of love's power to heal and the strength found in never giving up. Tears glistened in her eyes as she looked down at the puppy who had changed her life forever. The puppy looked up at her, sensing the emotion in her voice. His small heart swelled with gratitude. He had been born fragile, paralyzed, and alone, but he had been born to fight and to inspire. In that moment, surrounded by love and hope, Mira and the puppy understood something profound. Life is not about the limits placed on us, but about how fiercely we choose to live beyond them. His journey wasn't just about learning to crawl or move with wheels. It was about showing the world that the greatest strength lies in resilience and heart. As the sun dipped low, casting golden light over the park, the puppy rested his head against Mira's hand. They had come so far, together. And though the future was still uncertain, one thing was clear. This little fighter's story would live on, inspiring countless others to believe in hope, love, and the unbreakable will to survive. Because sometimes, the smallest souls carry the biggest lessons, and the bravest hearts are born to fight.